What's going on, you guys? This is Christian, aka Klaudless. Welcome back to another video here on Klaudless Media. This one is called I Like Dubstep, so why do I hate bass shows? It's going to be a real interesting one for you guys. It's a kind of a thought process and epiphany, I guess, or realization that I had. And I decided to, turn it into a video essay. So I hope you guys can relate to this, even if it doesn't necessarily pertain to bass music. Maybe it's other genres. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. All right. Opening. Everyone else is having fun. I've been going out a lot more over the past year, and I started noticing something strange. Most of the time, I can go to an event, not know a single song the DJ is playing, and still have a great time. House, techno, trance, goth nights, drum and bass, even just some random electronic music where I couldn't tell you what subgenre I'm listening to. If there's a good groove, eventually, I'm dancing. But then, there are bass shows. And for some reason, I keep having the exact opposite experience. The room can be packed. Everybody around me is losing their minds. The DJ drops something huge, the lights go crazy, the bass hits hard enough that I can feel it in my chest, and the entire crowd erupts. And I'm standing there thinking, why am I not having fun? And that confused me for a long time because I like dubstep. I've liked dubstep for years. I was listening to drum and bass and dubstep before either one became especially mainstream in the US. Before YouTube became my main source for discovering music, I was listening to BBC radio stations, Russian internet radio, French radio stations through iTunes, basically whatever I could find. I remember Benga, Rusko, Caspa. I remember dubstep before Skrillex. I remember Skrillex blowing up. I remember Borgor. You remember that guy? I think he's still playing. And I followed the genre through a lot of those changes. Even today, I still listen to dubstep at home. I regularly listen to dubstep stations on Radio Record and Soma FM, Dubstep Beyond. So, it wasn't as simple as maybe I just don't like dubstep anymore. Because apparently I do. I just don't seem to like being at a lot of modern bass shows. And after enough nights of leaving early, getting irritated with DJs, or standing in a packed room wondering what everybody else was hearing that I wasn't, I started to realize something. Maybe the DJs weren't bad. Maybe the music wasn't bad. Maybe they actually knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe I just wasn't the room. Section 1. I thought I liked this music. The weird part is, bass music isn't new to me. I didn't discover dubstep through a festival flyer or because somebody dragged me to a show. I was already listening to this stuff years ago. Back then, finding electronic music felt a little more like digging. Before YouTube became the place where I found everything, I was listening to BBC radio stations from the UK, Russian internet radio, French stations through iTunes, basically anything that gave me access to music I wasn't hearing around me. And somewhere in all of that, I found drum and bass. I found dub, then dubstep, and I loved it. And what I liked about early dubstep was that it could be heavy without constantly screaming for your attention. And there was space in it. There was atmosphere. There was bass, obviously, but there was also room to settle into the rhythm. Then Skrillex happened, and I loved that too. The sound got more aggressive, the bass got nastier, the drops became bigger and more dramatic, and then there was Borgore, and things got even more ridiculous. Still liked it. So as dubstep kept changing, I kept changing with it, at least for a while, because somewhere along the way, something shifted, and I honestly couldn't tell you exactly when it happened, because I never had some dramatic moment where I heard a new dubstep song and thought, nope, this genre sucks now. That never happened. I still found songs I liked. I still listened to dubstep at home. I still loved the drum and bass. But when I started going out more and ended up at modern bass events, I kept noticing the same thing. I wasn't dancing. Or I'd start dancing, finally catch a rhythm, and then something in the set would knock me out of it. Then I'd find it again, and lose it again. Eventually, I'd just get annoyed. And that was confusing because in my head, I was thinking, this is my kind of music. But apparently there was a difference between music I liked hearing and music I liked spending an entire night dancing to. And I hadn't realized yet just how big a difference that was. Section 2. The music sounds great, so why don't I want to dance? For a while, I had this theory that maybe there are songs made for regular listeners and songs made for musicians and producers. Not literally, obviously, but there are definitely songs where part of the appeal is hearing how technically impressive the production is. And modern bass music can be incredible at that. Sometimes I'll hear a track and think, how the hell did they make that sound? The bass design is insane. The textures are ridiculous. The mix is huge. There might be some tiny detail in the rhythm or some sound that only happens once, and I'm sitting there appreciating the amount of work that probably went into making it. And yet, I have absolutely no desire to dance to it. That was the part I couldn't reconcile, because in my head, good production and good music were supposed to overlap. If the song sounds amazing, shouldn't it make me want to move? Apparently not. And eventually, I realized that my original theory wasn't quite right. It wasn't really music for musicians versus music for everybody else. The better distinction was something closer to groove-oriented music versus impact-oriented music. Some music seems designed to give you a rhythm and let you live inside it. The beat settles in, your body finds the pattern, and once you're there, the music can start changing around you without ever really breaking that connection. Other music seems designed around moments. The build, the fake out, the drop, the bass hit, the switch, the next drop, the next surprise. And those moments can be incredibly effective. You can hear a drop and immediately understand why the room just exploded. But for me, there's a problem. Every time the music resets, I reset with it. Every time the groove gets interrupted, I have to find my way back in. And if that happens often enough, I stop trying. That's when I start getting irritated. Not because the music sounds bad, sometimes it sounds incredible, but because instead of pulling me deeper into the night, it keeps reminding me that I'm listening to a DJ set. Section 3. I need somewhere to live inside the beat. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I don't actually need 4 on-the-floor music in order to dance. I love house. I love trance, I love techno, but I also love drum and bass. And drum and bass obviously isn't giving me the same rhythmic pattern as house or trance. Older dubstep doesn't either. So the problem was never, I need a kick drum on every beat. What I need is continuity. I need a groove that stays around long enough for my body to understand it. Long enough that I can stop thinking about what I'm doing. Because when a DJ really gets me, there's eventually a point where I'm not analyzing the music anymore. I'm not thinking, that was a good transition. I'm not wondering what song is playing. I'm not waiting for the next drop. I'm barely even thinking about the DJ. I'm just moving. And then sometimes I'll look up and realize I've been dancing for the last 45 minutes. That's the feeling I'm chasing. Not necessarily excitement, not necessarily surprise. It's almost closer to hypnosis. The rhythm becomes something I can settle into. And once I'm there, the DJ can absolutely change songs. The energy can rise, it can fall, the drums can disappear for a minute, the whole mood can change. But as long as there's some kind of continuity carrying me through it, I can stay inside the experience. That's why trance can have these long builds and breakdowns and still work for me. That's why drum and bass can be chaotic and fast and still work for me. That's why I can go to a night where I don't know a single song and still dance until I'm exhausted. I don't need familiarity. I need momentum. I need the music to take me somewhere and then give me enough time to actually be there. And once I understood that, I also understood why certain bass sets frustrate me so much. Because right when I finally find somewhere to live inside the beat, the DJ changes the locks. Section 4, and then the DJ changes the fucking song. This is probably the part that irritates me the most. I'll finally catch the groove. I'm moving, I'm starting to lock in, and then, new song. Alright, fine, I'll adjust. I find the rhythm again, and then there's a fake out, and then a drop, then another switch, then another build, then another song. And at some point, I'm just standing there thinking, can you please leave the fucking music alone for like a second? Because I get it. You can transition. You can beat match. You can chop tracks together. You can double drop. You have 50 unreleased IDs. Wonderful. But I was enjoying the song. And this is where I think my frustration used to turn into judgment. I would hear a DJ switching tracks every minute or constantly interrupting the flow and think, this is bad DJing. Because to me, good DJing meant building a journey, letting songs breathe, creating enough continuity that I could forget the DJ was even there. So when a set kept demanding my attention every 30 seconds, it felt like the DJ was getting in the way of the music. Like they were constantly tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, watch this. Okay, now watch this. Whoa, wait. This next part is crazy. And I'm thinking, I know, but I was dancing. The stranger part was that everyone around me seemed to love it. Every switch got a reaction. Every drop got bigger. People were screaming, headbanging, throwing their hands up. The room was alive. And meanwhile, I was getting more and more irritated. For a while, I thought that meant the DJ just wasn't reading the room. But eventually, I had to admit something obvious. They were reading the room. In fact, they were reading it perfectly. I just wasn't the room. Section 5. You just aren't the room. Once I had that realization, a lot of things suddenly made sense. Because I'm not daft. I can see when a room is packed. I can see when certain DJs keep getting booked. I can see when an event has 2 floors and almost everybody is on the bass floor. I can go online afterward and see people talking about how incredible the set was, how hard the drops hit, how excited they are for the next bass artist coming through. Clearly, something is working. So, if I'm standing in the middle of all that thinking, this DJ needs to read the room, at some point I have to look around and realize they are. I'm just not who they're reading it for. And that was a weirdly freeing realization, because up until then, I had been treating these shows like failed versions of the experience I wanted. Like somebody had taken a perfectly good dance night and ruined it by constantly interrupting the groove. But that wasn't what was happening. I had accidentally stepped into a different dance floor culture. One where the interruption might actually be part of the appeal. Where people are waiting for the next drop, the next double, the next fake out, the next ridiculous bass sound. The next moment where the entire room gets hit with something at exactly the same time and everybody loses their mind together. And once I started looking at it that way, I could finally understand what everyone else was getting out of it. They weren't necessarily waiting for the DJ to disappear into the background. They were paying attention to what the DJ was doing. They wanted the surprise. They wanted the impact. They wanted those moments where the whole room suddenly reacts as one. And I'm looking for something almost completely different. I want the DJ to disappear. I want to stop noticing the transitions. I want the music to become one long thing that I'm inside of. I want to look up an hour later and realize I never stopped moving. Neither experience is wrong. They're just different. And for years, I didn't even realize there were 2 different experiences being offered. I thought we were all showing up for the same thing. We weren't. Section 6. I was listening for the wrong thing. Once I realized I had stepped into a different dance floor culture, I started noticing what people were actually reacting to. And suddenly, the whole thing made a lot more sense. At a lot of modern bass shows, the excitement isn't always coming from a long groove slowly pulling everyone deeper. Sometimes the excitement is the moment itself. The drop, the double, the fake out, the switch, the unreleased track nobody expected. The bass sound that makes everybody turn to the person next to them like, "Bro, what the fuck was that?" The DJ might chop between 2 tracks, slam different drops together, tease one song, and switch into another. Oh my god, I absolutely hate that. Sorry. How it's a PTSD here. Anyways, or completely interrupt what I thought was the direction of the set. And to me, that interruption can feel frustrating. But to someone who loves that style of DJing, that might be the entire point. They're listening for the trick. They're listening for the surprise. They're listening for the moment where the DJ does something they didn't expect. And that helped me understand something else. A lot of the bass music that I used to think was overly focused on production probably is focused on production. But that isn't automatically a criticism. Sound design is part of the attraction. The texture of the bass matters. The weight of it matters. How weird it sounds matters. How hard it hits on a massive system matters. Sometimes the fun is hearing a sound you've never heard before and feeling it hit you hard enough that your entire body reacts. So while I might be standing there waiting for the groove to settle in, somebody else might be waiting for the next sonic uppercut. And those two people are going to judge the exact same set very differently. For me, the ideal night feels something like groove, development, more groove, a gradual rise, and eventually I'm so deep inside it that I stop thinking. That's an innuendo right there. But a bass heavy set might be built more like anticipation, impact, reaction, reset. Anticipation, impact, reaction. And once I saw that difference, I finally understood why the constant switching didn't bother anybody else the way it bothered me. They weren't necessarily being pulled out of the experience. For them, those moments were the experience. And that was probably the biggest thing I had been missing. I kept waiting for the music to hypnotize me. They were waiting for it to surprise them. Section 7. I don't hate dubstep. And this is the part I had to be careful about. Because after enough bad nights, it would have been easy for me to just say, modern dubstep sucks. But that isn't true. I still listen to dubstep. I still love drum and bass. I still hear modern bass tracks that I think sound incredible. Sometimes the production is so good that I'll replay a section just to figure out what the hell the producer did. So the issue was never that I stopped liking bass music. The issue was that I kept assuming liking bass music meant I should also like bass shows. Those are not the same thing. There are plenty of songs I love listening to at home that I would never want to hear for 2 straight hours in a club. And there are songs I might never put on by myself that become perfect the second I hear them in the right room, on the right system, with the right DJ. Context matters a lot. What I finally realized is that I like bass music considerably more than I like contemporary bass show culture. And once I put it that way, everything clicked. It explained why I could enjoy dubstep in my headphones and then get irritated hearing something similar at an event. It explained why I could love drum and bass all night, but lose interest during a set built around constant drops and switches. It explained why I could appreciate the skill of the DJ and still not enjoy the set. And most importantly, it meant I didn't have to keep forcing myself to like something just because it belonged to a genre I thought was supposed to be mine. I wasn't betraying my taste, I was finally understanding it. I don't hate dubstep, I don't hate bass music. I just know now that when I go out to dance, I'm looking for a very specific kind of experience. And a lot of bass shows are offering something else. Ending. Now I know what I'm looking for. The funny thing is, this realization has actually made going out easier. Because now, when I see a flyer that says EDM night, I know that doesn't really tell me much. I need to know what kind of EDM night. House, techno, trance, drum and bass, dubstep, rhythm, bass. But because those words aren't just describing different sounds. Sometimes they're describing completely different expectations for what the dance floor is supposed to feel like. And I finally know what I'm looking for. It isn't familiar songs. Some of the best nights I've had recently were nights where I didn't know anything the DJ played. It isn't necessarily 4 to the floor either. Drum and bass already proved that. What I'm looking for is continuity. I want a groove I can trust. I want the DJ to take me somewhere without constantly reminding me that they're the one driving. I want enough time inside the music that I can stop thinking about the music. That's when I come alive. Not when every drop surprises me, not when every transition makes me look towards the booth, but when I stop noticing the booth altogether. When the songs stop feeling like separate songs. When the night becomes one long rhythm. And I disappear into it. So now, if I walk into a bass show and everybody around me is having the time of their life while I'm standing there wishing the DJ would just let the damn song play, I don't have to assume something is wrong with the DJ. I don't have to assume something is wrong with the music. And I don't have to assume something is wrong with me. Sometimes the DJ is reading the room perfectly. Sometimes I'm just not the room. And now I finally know which room I'm looking for. Thanks for listening, you guys. This has been Christian, aka Klaudless with Klaudless Media. If you guys enjoyed that, be sure to like, share, maybe subscribe, or leave a comment. If you can relate, if not to this experience with bass music or the modern bass scene. If it's a different genre you've had that experience with, let me know. This is pretty much going in my Klaudless nightlife field notes. Just some thoughts I've been having, like I said at the beginning of the video. And I'm really happy to be sharing this with you guys. Definitely more post-event thoughts coming your way, so stay tuned. And I will see you guys in the next one. Klaudless, just, I'm everywhere. Just Google, look up Klaudless, see all my other stuff. Anyways, peace out. Bye.